Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook on at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show, and today I am here with Megan Scott, who is a candidate for Oklahoma City Council in Ward 1. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Gregory.
All right, so where are you from and where did you grow up at?
Well, that is an interesting question. I'm what you call a third culture kid. I actually was born and raised in Asunción, Paraguay. My parents were missionaries there. And then we moved to Shawnee, Oklahoma when I was almost 15 years old, and I have lived in Oklahoma ever since. So spent most of my growing up in South America and living as a kid there, and then spent the later half of my life so far in Shawnee and then now in Oklahoma City for the last 11 years.
That's cool,
Hmm.
especially that part about living in Shawnee.
Yeah.
So what all have you done since you graduated from Shawnee High School?
Well, I went to college. I went to Oklahoma Baptist University, so I didn't go too far after graduating from Shawnee. Got my degree in art and graduated right at the recession, 2008, when everyone was like, oh, we don't have jobs. Great. So I was an art major. So, of course, I didn't have a job anyways. But actually, I lucked out because the year, my senior year of college, had gotten a job as a temporary clerk at the Potawatomi County Health Department. And I was a Spanish interpreter and just did like filing and things like that. And so, because I had that connection and had like put in a year of work working in public health, I was able to get a job at the Cleveland County Health Department. And so I was what's called an immunization field consultant. So I spent a lot of time traveling around Cleveland and McLean counties, meeting with physicians, usually pediatricians, to talk about how they use their vaccine, how they vaccinate children, help them come up with strategies for vaccinating more children, help them figure out how they can store their vaccine appropriately. So yeah, I did that for a good 6 years. And then had a baby and decided I didn't want to commute to Norman anymore, while also raising a small child. So ended up working for a nonprofit for a bit, and then just doing some kind of administrative stuff. And then I worked in early childhood policy for a couple years for the governor's state advisory council for early childhood, which is called the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness. And it was there I really fell in love with government and policy. I'm now it's weird, I've gone from art degree to public health, kind of professional, to being very much a policy nerd, and really fell in love with the way we can use government to help people, just everyday people, especially families with young children. And well, because I was at OPSR, I had the opportunity to get my master's degree. So I attended University of Central Oklahoma while working there and got my master's in public administration. And just it was a very meshed very well with the work that I was doing at OPSR, in regards to the research I was doing and how policy impacts young children. Um, Then I worked in nonprofit a little bit more, doing development work, and now I actually work for the Department of Commerce at the Oklahoma Office of Workforce Development. I manage a couple of $1 million grants to expand apprenticeship opportunities across the state. So I work with employers who are looking to build their talent pipeline using registered apprenticeship.
All right, that sounds good. And you said you got your master's at UCO?
Yes,
All
yes.
right, I'm currently going to UCO,
Oh,
so
good,
yeah.
good.
Um, so on your platform, on your website, you talk about investing in public transportation. Could you talk about what you'd like to do in order to further invest in public transportation in Oklahoma City?
Yeah. So we've actually come a long ways. I feel just we've lived here 11 years. So I moved here about 2009. Um, and it's come very far since then. And the amount of access that we have to public transit, we've reworked kind of the system and kind of the routes to make it more accessible and a little bit faster. We'll have the bus rapid transit coming in the future, so that's pretty exciting, especially for Ward 1 since it starts out in Ward 1 over on Northwest Expressway, and will make it easily accessible for people to just take the bus downtown. A little bit faster than what it currently is. It's about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on what time of day it is. But um, so that's all exciting, but I think that we could do more. So my priorities are to continue to push and prioritize the plans that we have in place already. But when talking to voters, they would like to see even more of an effort to increase public transit. I talked to one voter who works in real estate, and he really wants to see us do some public transit out by the airport. Make it accessible for people to just take the bus in, take the bus out, especially people who are traveling for business into Oklahoma City. It is far easier to catch a bus than it would be to rent a car. And if you're someone who is really just going downtown, why shouldn't we just make it that accessible to them? Um, I've also talked to people about light rail and the opportunities that we could have to build our economy in Oklahoma City, especially if we institute some sort of light rail system. There's been conversations about it. People have been talking about it for years. But I really like to see us do something and take that step. And I know it requires money, but I think that if we're willing to take that risk, I think we'll reap the rewards if we're willing to invest.
All right, that sounds good. So could you tell me about your inclusive and accessibility city policy plan?
Yeah, so this is where my nerd came out. um, so let me talk about why this plan kind of came to fruition. Um, you know, a couple months ago, I guess this was spring, maybe. Who time has no meaning anymore. But at some point this year, when we were all listening to the city council meetings via Zoom, which I'm very glad that honestly, I think that's one of the bright spots of COVID is that we were able to make the city was able to make city council meetings more accessible to everyone from home who, often people can't take time off to go and make their voice heard in their city council meetings because they have to do it in person. But this allowed people to do it in a virtual setting, which is so cool. Um, but during one of those meetings, there was a gentleman who I believe he's deaf, had called in with an interpreter, but they couldn't. Somehow there was an issue, and they didn't connect him with the interpreter, and it was just frustrating. I think it was a meeting that was frustrating anyways because of the content. I think it was about the budget, but that in itself was ultimately frustrating. And this gentleman, who when he did was able to voice his concerns, his concern and his complaint was that the city doesn't make a big enough effort to provide interpreters or follow really the law or the policy that they have in place to provide sign language interpreters when they're requested. And the answer to that concern was very flippant. And it was, well, our policy says that we only have to provide them if it's a scheduled thing or a permitted thing. And I was like, well, that's not okay. So there's that. And then the other issue was I wish I could remember her name, because shout out to this woman for organizing this. Decided to take upon herself to transcribe the entire 9-hour city council meeting. And so I was like, why are we relying on poor volunteers to do this, when this is something that we should be doing anyways, because we need to be making our city government more accessible. So out of that, I started doing a lot of research on how cities can become more accessible and more inclusive to individuals with disabilities. And it kind of came to fruition where I developed a 4-point strategy, to allow that all people should have the opportunity to contribute and benefit from their city government, no matter their ability, no matter their age, their gender, their sex, their religion, their nationality, or any identifier you could possibly think of. And so, the first one was meaningful, inclusive, and active participation for all city residents in all parts of government, which means that we have closed captioning on any video, no matter what, which I will give the city staff credit. They actually work really, really hard to try and make everything as accessible as possible. Just budget doesn't always allow for everything that we could possibly want. Making sure that we have the ability to have sign language interpreters on call when we need them. In cases with that gentleman who had requested a sign language interpreter during a protest to be able to communicate with the police, while the policy might not say that they have to do it because it wasn't a sanctioned or permitted event, you should still have someone there to provide interpretation for the safety of the public. I think that's just common sense and just graciousness. So meaningful, inclusive, and active participation for all city residents in all parts of government. Expanding non-discrimination policies to leave no one behind. We've done some good work on that. I think that we can go further. So, making sure that we prioritize equitable and affordable and safe access to physical, social, and digital infrastructure across the board, across all city planning objectives and programs, making sure that we're inclusive in our city planning for individuals who have disabilities or people who are aging, who want to age in place in their homes, making sure that we're reaching out to different organizations, different people groups to ensure that we are meeting the needs of everyone in our community. I think is really important to making sure our city is planned inclusively and accessibly. Health is also a big issue. As you know, Oklahoma has some pretty poor health outcomes. So providing equal access to health, good air, and clean water, and that's where, kind of climate change comes in. What is our city doing to prioritize a sustainable environment? What is our city doing to prioritize access to parks and different recreational areas? What is our city doing to prioritize healthcare for individuals in our community? And then safety is the finally the fourth one. So that means investing in things like better signage, but public transit, reducing the number of cars on the city streets would also go a long way to improving the safety of individuals in our community, especially those who are unable to drive or don't have access to a vehicle. It is really important. And then thinking about the relationship that our city employees tend to have with different groups in our community, and how we are fostering a positive relationship between city employees and the people who live here. So that's it. That's a really long tirade.
No, it's good though. You also talk about spending taxpayer dollars wisely. How do you intend on making sure that that is a thing?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of I think everyone puts this on their honestly, everyone puts that on their platform. Not very many people do it though.
Yeah.
So what right? So what it's about is that ensuring that what we're spending our tax dollars on are things that improve the lives of our residents, and the people who live here, versus throwing money at corporations. Um, not that invest not I will say that investing in economic growth is important. And in some cases, you do have to do that We've had to do that for our local businesses in a lot of ways, especially with CARES dollars, to keep them afloat because our local business economy is really important to the growth and the stabilization of our economy in our city. But which is great, and I strongly believe that we should continue to invest in small businesses. However, when we invest in large corporations that are bringing jobs into the city, also important to have jobs in our city, we often neglect, I guess, I think we tend to neglect the whole picture. You know, I get a lot of complaints from people about, we're throwing money at Amazon and we're throwing money at Walmart and all these people are getting money and they're not providing good enough jobs. That may be true, that may be not. I haven't done enough research to tell you whether it is or not. However, when we invest in corporations instead of people in our community, we're neglecting the holistic kind of picture. And so what I would like to do is really think strategically about when we give money to an organization or an employer with the potential of several thousand jobs, what else are we expecting from them to do besides just provide jobs? Are those jobs going, are we making sure that those jobs include livable wages? What is the average wage that they plan to have? Do they come with healthcare benefits? What kind of healthcare benefits? Are we requiring them to provide paid family leave? Are we requiring them to think about the overall health and like their long-term strategy of how long they plan on being in our city? Or is it a one and done, good luck, hope you survive kind of thing? Are we connecting them to qualified and skilled employees in Oklahoma? Do we have enough skilled workers in our city to fulfill their employment needs? And if not, how are we going to help the local workforce board and other workforce development organizations make sure that we do have the skilled workers in our city? Because we want people in our city to get those jobs. We don't want people moving into our city to take those jobs, which that's fine. If they want to move in, that's fine. But if the whole point is to provide jobs in our city right now, then we want people to be skilled and moving into those jobs as well here. We want to be able to support that. The other thing is are we adding additional services or additional supports that get those people to those jobs? So are we thinking about, is there enough highly qualified, affordable childcare to provide to those individuals who are getting those jobs? Is there enough public transit access to that business in order for people to drive to those jobs or take their bus to those jobs? And how does that look? And so really, I think it's about doing due diligence and thinking about the picture much broader than what we are. And oh well, this business will give 1,000 jobs done. It's far beyond that. The other thing is, I think we need to think about, are the things that we currently fund, are they doing what we need them to do? And are we doing this in an equitable way? Are we thinking about when we give money out or when we provide services, are we making sure that everyone has access to these services and everyone has a chance to reap these rewards and reap these benefits? Or are we only focusing on one group of people? And if we are focusing on one group of people, is that making our city more equitable and inclusive by focusing on those people? Totally went off on another terrain. Sorry.
No, it's a good answer. Last question I have here is, what kind of music do you listen to?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I listen to a weird variety of music. I've been listening to a lot of Andra Day lately. She's gotten me through COVID pandemic nostalgia. But I also listen to cachaca music because I'm from Paraguay and sometimes I just need it. Um, uh, and I don't know. A lot of alternative. You know what I've also been listening to, which is a little weird and really only because I'm a mom of a 6-year-old girl, but the Julie and the Phantom soundtrack is actually really fun. So I don't know if you've seen that show, but
I
it's
haven't. I have
great.
no idea what you're talking.
Oh my
What
gosh.
is that?
It's so okay, so it's based off a Brazilian show. And Julie is this teenage girl who lives in this house and her mom has died and so she's sad. But these ghosts show up, this 80s ghost band maybe they're 90s ghost band shows up. And so they form and she's of course a wonderful singer. So they form this band and people can only see the ghosts when they play. And so anyways, there's a lot of like rock anthems from like kind of neat 90s style and maybe that's why I like it. But so it's been fun soundtrack to listen to in the car and just to boost your mood. But yeah, a weird variety. I'm not stuck on any one band.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media, and what is your campaign website?
Well, my campaign website is Megan Scott for OKC. So that's MEGANSCOTT. And for is spelled out FOR. And then I'm on Facebook as well. Megan for OKC, I believe is what it is. Hold on. I shouldn't say that without looking it up. I'm so sorry. It's Megan Scott for Ward 1.